Hello, I'm Stephen A. King. Welcome to Hot Topics on Legalese TV, where we bring you the hottest topics in the media with a legal twist. Today we're here with board-certified criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Austin Dub. Welcome, Austin.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's great to have you back.
Thank you.
All right. 17-year-old Trayvon Martin pronounced dead at the hand of his assailant, George Zimmerman. Now, Mr. Zimmerman is just very recently charged with the crime, and he turned himself in as early as this week. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it certainly took a long time for that to happen, but clearly at this point, the prosecution, probably after the vast public outcry and the media scrutiny that this case has undergone, has determined that with that, perhaps coupled with other evaluations, they've determined that there's enough to charge Mr. Zimmerman with second-degree murder under the applicable law.
So as a former prosecutor, do you think the prosecution is making the right move?
I think so. I think that notwithstanding the public outcry, and of course that's a factor and an influence, the prosecution's got to answer to its electorate and it's got to answer to the standard of the law. I think it's the right move to make because I think the evidence supports it.
Okay. Now, as a defense attorney, are you able to presume Mr. Zimmerman innocent until proven otherwise?
Well, absolutely. At the same time, there's not a whole lot of witnesses to this case. There's people that have heard the aftermath. There's a young lady, Trayvon's girlfriend, who's speaking on the phone that, without being there, heard certain things occur. But Mr. Zimmerman is entitled to that protection, and we do have to have a certain patience that would apply to our assessment of the case, because it could be that Mr. Zimmerman, put it another way, Zimmerman had no prior knowledge of Mr. Martin. They had no prior conflict. The man's walking in a gated community. Zimmerman has been, sort of charged with the responsibility of taking care of that community. It could be that he did have a certain fear of Mr. Martin. We don't know what was actually playing in his mind, but what we do know is that there was a fatality at the hands of Mr. Zimmerman. It sounds like it should not have happened the way it happened, but Mr. Zimmerman could have had on some level a basis to believe that he had to use deadly force.
Now, is Zimmerman a member of law enforcement?
No, he's not.
Okay.
No, he's not.
But he's the head of some neighborhood watch.
He's sort of self-designated, as they said, the head of the neighborhood watch in that community, and decided to kind of crown himself. I'm the head chief over here, and I'll protect you all.
And he was aware of robberies or break-ins that had been done in that area. There
is some evidence that Mr. Zimmerman had been involved in at least one, maybe call, and perhaps even an arrest of a young man who had done a break-in in that Sanford area. Because
it seems as if he's following Trayvon in his car, he gets out, he talks to 911 operator, and yet and still there's some sort of advancement towards Trayvon, and then all of a sudden he says, hey, I was standing my ground. So do you see any kind of interplay or complications with the law as we're understanding what's going on TV?
I certainly see that the assertion of the immunity statute, or the assertion of the stand your ground defense, is questionable under these circumstances. It certainly looks like, the purpose of the law is to protect someone who doesn't want to flee. They say, look, I want to stay where I'm at. I don't want to.
If you're at your house,
I'm at my house. I'm in a place of safety. I'm around a place I'm familiar with. I don't want to have to run from an individual who may be causing a threat to me. So that's what we're talking about. That's really the spirit of the law. When we get into this set of facts, as it starts to kind of become more clear what happened, it does look like at this level he couldn't really justifiably assert that he was standing his ground.
Now, I got to ask you this, Austin. As a former prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney, if you were given this case, which side of the ball would you want to be on? Prosecutor or defense attorney?
Well, I think, now I'm a defense attorney at heart, so I can certainly see a lot of reasons why Zimmerman would be entitled to a defense. Of course, there is the issue about, the identity that we have with Trayvon, a lot of us having, seeing kids like this and knowing that those kids maybe are at risk in some peculiar ways, and this case sort of illustrates how that can happen. But I'd say it's a very defensible case, and I would say that the prosecution will have some challenges.
Spoken from the perspective of one of LA's finest board-certified criminal defense attorney, Austin Dub. Austin, it's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
There you have it. Hot Topics on Legalese TV. See you next week.